So usually I like to start with a small joke to relax myself. But then today I'm feeling unusually relaxed and over-prepared, so we'll skip the joke, skip the appetizer, go straight to the main course. So thank you, Nancy. Sorry, Nilankur.
Thank you.
You. Um, One thing I got to keep in mind is not to be waving around my hands too much. I tend to do that a lot. If it gets too distracting at any point with the hands, please point it out. 2,700 species of snakes in the world. It's a huge number. You don't think it's that big. 274 odd species found in India. And that's a hell of a number also when you compare that the whole of Europe has just 2. So we've got amazing biodiversity of snakes here. Out of which about 40, 35, 40 odd species are found in Goa. They all have the same basic plan, the same basic structure. So if you understand snakes here in Goa, you understand them all over the world. Some years ago, I was in Australia. I am dropping names. I was handling a red-bellied. I had a chance to go out on a snake rescue call with a snake handler there, with a snake rescuer. And it was a red-bellied black snake. And I was super excited. I wanted to handle this snake, because it's a completely different snake. I've never seen anything like it. Same as a snake you can find, in terms of behavior, pretty much the same as something that you can find here in Goa. Another time, handling rattlesnakes in the US. Again, there's a lot of apprehension because you've heard so many things about snakes from around the world. People tell you, oh, a black mamba, it'll actually chase you all the way back home. They're all very similar in the way they behave. So if you just understand the behavior of a snake, then you can know how to work yourself, how to negotiate through snakes anywhere. So we're going to start with, I feel a great place to start with is a snake's sense organs. So right off the bat, all snakes are deaf. Now you don't really realize the significance of this until you're a snake handler, you're a snake rescuer, and you go over to rescue a snake in someone's house, and everybody is talking in hushed voices and saying, it's somewhere over there, and this and that. I used to make it a point to talk very loudly around people because I thought that they would get it, In those days, I didn't tell them, oh, it can't hear or anything like that. I just thought I'll talk very loudly, but I think I just gained the reputation for being a very noisy snake handler, making a lot of noise, talking very loudly. So how about eyesight? What does a snake see? I think if you've seen Nat Geo movies from about 20 years ago, you've seen this footage. When they show you through a snake's eyes, it's this kind of red image, and it's all like kind of distorted and like it's messed up. That's exactly how a snake sees, right? Not at all, obviously. Yeah, it was just meant to show you that it's a different perspective. So what does a snake see? When you've got a cobra 3 feet in front of you, you've got snakes with eyes, so they can clearly see. You don't have external ear openings on a snake, so you know that they can't hear, but they've got eyes. So what do they see? So this is very interesting. Snakes really only see movement. So if you show a photograph of yours to your dog, does he look at it and say, yeah, you remember the time when we went out to the beach and, I was tossing the ball and stuff like that? No, for him, it's just a piece of paper. So you have to understand that when you're seeing, you have to not just see, you have to understand what you're seeing. And for us at this level, we may not see something if it's camouflaged, but we can still understand from a photograph, Whereas when a snake sees, it doesn't see unless you move. You all saw the movie Jurassic Park. You remember the T-Rex scene? You ran, you got eaten by the T-Rex. If you stood still, the T-Rex came right up to your nose, and his nostril air will blow the hat off, of one of the scientists' heads. I can't remember his name. But it doesn't see you. Now, snake's vision is exactly like that. Now, when I say this, most people think, oh, that means when I see a snake, I shouldn't move. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when a snake reacts, it's because of the sudden movement that has happened when you came upon it. And picture, you go into a corner to like lift up like some piece of plastic, a large piece of plastic or some cloth bag or something. It's the movement that triggers it. So, and then you got the third sense organ. It's tongue. What does a snake use its tongue for? It's smelling the air. It's not, so in a sense, it's tasting the air. And the tongue being forked is to do with being able to give it direction. So it's like we have 2 ears, not because we need a spare one, but because the sound hitting this eardrum is different. It reaches this eardrum. If it's coming from this side, it reaches quicker here than here. And my brain will measure the difference. And then I can pinpoint the source of the sound to within 3 degrees of its source. So with a snake's tongue, it's astonishing because with the tongue, it knows which direction the rat went. Yeah? Remarkable things. When a snake goes for a rat, how does it know it's the right size? By its smell. It's quite bizarre to think about it. And again, when you apply it to something else, if I gave you a T-shirt of which was on a human being, most often you would be able to say, okay, this is a T-shirt which was on a baby, perhaps this is a T-shirt which was on a woman, this is a T-shirt which was on a man. It's interesting. We can actually tell size in that way. Snakes, it's remarkable. They can actually tell how big the animal is. When it kills the animal, it has to swallow it head first. How does it find the head? I told you, if it doesn't move, it can't see it. Animal is already dead. The head smells different from the rest of the body. There's a slight difference, and it's measuring it. So this is the thing, that when you understand how the sense organs work, and this is what I want to do today. There's 2 other sense organs that we're going to discuss, but I'll discuss those later. I'm going to go now to the slides, but before that, I just want to say something. When I ask people to I ask them if they want to ask any questions. The one thing I always get asked is, how do you tell the difference between a venomous snake and a non-venomous snake? So, what are you going to do with that information? Are you going to, if you find a snake in your house and it turns out, in your compound, and it turns out to be venomous, what do? You kill it? You relocate it? So you have to think, because this is something that a lot of people want to know, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. That's what they want to know. And then they have a different treatment for each snake. So, by the way, another thing I want to also clarify is that when people see a snake, or if they don't see a snake, it's always a problem. It's always a problem. Let me elaborate on that. If people don't see snakes, they say, oh, when I was growing up, there were so many snakes around and it was amazing and we were playing with them and whatnot. Then they will see a python crossing the road, or they'll have a snake up on the roof, and it's like, oh my God, this is the problem with human beings these days. We have destroyed all their forests. That's why they're coming up on the roofs and they have nowhere to go. How do you know it's a problem? How do you know that snake is not meant to be there? How do you know it's not in balance with that place? Think about it. We certainly, and most often, people who know nothing about snakes are judging them. They are deciding that the python shouldn't be here or it should be there based on the limited past experience. Your own limit. And the other thing is, it's always about us, right? We want to know. It's like saying, I need to know about venomous snakes because I need to feel safe. It's like saying, I think I saw a Goan outside my house yesterday and I kind of feel unsafe. So I would love, I'm calling the Goan rescue helpline to get this Goan rescued and relocated into Pakistan. This is what we are suggesting when we are talking about snake rescue. So for me, what is ideal? I'm not interested in doing rescue work in that way. What is ideal is that if at the end of the session, you don't see a problem with snakes around. That's the first thing. You don't see it as a problem. The second thing is, if you don't see it as a problem, you will take time to observe it, look at it. And it's remarkable. I mean, I love snakes, so for me, it's like amazing, right? So many snakes in Goa. So when you see a cobra, you're super excited. So if you let your judgment and your fear come in the way, you are missing out on something incredibly fascinating. And then when the snakes are gone, you want to go and see them in a zoo. Or see them on Nat Geo. With the red eye, that image, or whatever. So these are things. So this is what I want to discuss. Let's start the slide presentation. So I'm going to, hold on one second. I'm going to show the slides. Now I'm making it very clear. I'm not distinguishing between venomous and non-venomous snakes. I will show you how to recognize some of the snakes and just discuss some things that are kind of interesting for me, which I think will be interesting for you. Because out of the 40-odd species you find here in Goa, about 10 species will make up 95% of the snakes you are likely to see. If you see a snake, 95% chance it's from these 10 species. Yeah? So we're just going to run through those first, and then I'm going to show you a few photographs I've taken of rarer snakes. Spectacled cobra. So what can I tell you about the snake? One of the most common snakes around, actually. A lot of my rescue calls used to end up being spectacled cobras. But I think that the fact that the cobra is really feared in Goa, people are really frightened of cobras, and they are scared to kill them because they believe if they kill the snake, it's either misfortune that is going to find them, or the female will find them and butcher them in their sleep. So because of that, so it worked in the snake's favor, and a lot of times I got called to rescue cobras because people were too afraid to kill it themselves, or they just felt that there was something religious about it. So it did distort. So in the 15 odd years that I rescued snakes a lot, I think I must have rescued about 300 cobras. And out of, say, the 2,000 odd species of snakes I rescued. Now, on the other hand, if you compare it to Russell's vipers, about 50 Russell's vipers, about 4 or 5 crates, and 1 saw-scale viper. Yeah. Now, these are the 4 main venomous snakes you'll find around here. But like I said, cobras are, you get a lot of rescue calls for them. The other reason cobras are very common is because they actually love living around people's houses. It's quite interesting. We've made it a paradise for them. They love rats. They eat frogs. They're pretty much Catholic in their diet. They'll eat anything. Yeah. I once rescued a cobra from someone's house, brought it back home, and it regurgitated a dead rat covered in maggots. It is incredible. It was dead. It had the maggots on it. I mean, I was amazed. I didn't think snakes would eat dead animals, but that's how like I said, Catholic they are in their diet. They'll eat pretty much anything. So they do really well around people's houses. And when I learned the skill, when I was training to handle snakes, the first snake out of the 4 main venomous snakes I was given to handle was actually the spectacle cobra. In Tamil, it's called Nalla Pambu, which means the good snake, because apparently it always gives you a warning before it bites. Now, actually, that's not true. All snakes give you a warning. Yeah, but with the cobra, it's pretty amazing, right? The hood opens up, and if you see a live cobra, and I wish I could bring one and put it out here, it scare the bejesus out of you. The hissing, and yet you can't take your eyes off it. Just remarkable how beautiful it looks. So, why is it called the spectral cobra? So, like I said, the snake doesn't know when the hood is open like that. I got it to open up the hood by making a big action in front of it. When my beloved Simran, who you will see later, usually when she is helping me with photographs, so either she has to do the movement and then I try and get the picture. So you have to do this movement in front of the snake. It gets the hood up, and I needed to get the back of the hood. So you have a cloth on a stick, and then you move it around. The snake follows the movement, and then I could get the back of the snake, which is why it's called a spectacle cobra. And now this is interesting because the snake doesn't know where you are, so it's painted a face on the back of its head just in case it's facing the wrong direction. Yeah, and now this is the same cobra with the hood closed. How do you get it to close the hood? Well, you just sit there doing nothing. After 15 minutes, the snake, because it doesn't see you, it slowly settles down and goes off. And this is a very difficult photograph to get, actually, because when the hood folds, it's gone. And it looks very similar to another snake in Goa called a rat snake. Now, notice this pattern along the tail. It's like a whitish netted pattern. And I'm going to show you the rat snake now. So it's this black netted pattern on the tail, which is will help you differentiate it from the cobra. That's just one of the things. Of course, after a while, you start being able to see the head. There's a difference in the head, the eyes, because you've got to remember when you're a snake rescuer and you're up on someone's roof and this is all you're seeing, just a small section. Based on that, you've got to be absolutely sure, is it a rat snake or is it a cobra? Because if it's a cobra, you've got to handle it differently. If it's a rat snake, you can probably try something where you put your hand in directly. But that's the point, you see. If you're not handling snakes, it makes no difference. And again, I'm coming back to this. I want you to be able to identify snakes to enjoy it. Not to like you would go out if you went bird watching, to be really involved in the whole thing. But this is how you would differentiate the two. Now, you got the second one. Okay, this is a practice for you. So, is it a cobra? Is it a rat snake? Rat snake, very clear, right? Now, I use this image. It looks very different from the previous image in the color. You've got to remember what changes in a snake's life. What is the variation and what remains constant? So you see that black netted pattern, it's still there on the tail. Yeah. So that's how you identify snakes. And this is why I never discuss when people tell me the snake was this long or that long. It's not very helpful information because it could be a baby of one snake or it could be an adult of another. So certain things will keep changing, but certain patterns remain constant. That will help you identify them. Now you've got I heard someone say python. Love that. Because this proves my point that this one is often confused with the python. And what is it? Russell's viper. Yeah, cool. I love this specimen, another thing you have got to consider, snakes all cobras don't look the same. You get the average cobra and then you get the model. And this was the model, Russell's viper. because they had very, by the time they get to this age, usually they are like the colors, at least the makeup is fading away, and then they'll have sometimes the markings are not so striking, but this one had these incredibly striking markings for a very big snake. It was about that much, and really thick. They're very symmetrical markings. They're evenly spaced out. Yeah, very, very symmetrical, neat. I'm going to show you the python next. So you have this pattern in mind. And then there's going to be a test with no prizes. So that's a python. Now you see, every single marking is different. No two pythons will have the same markings also. And they're much more tightly packed. So as a test, what do you reckon? Confused? Take your time. It's snake handling. You can't afford to get it wrong. Russell's white. Yeah? Symmetrical markings. Now, the interesting thing about this snake, the first Russell's wiper I showed you was that thick and like I said, that big. This one will fit in the palm of my hand. It's a baby Russell's wiper. I found it in between books on a bookshelf, looking in someone's house for about 2 hours or so. And I just about given up, and I figured we're not going to find this. There's no snake there. But the owner was insistent. He said, no, it's there now. Eventually found it, Very, very beautiful. Then you got third venomous snake. Now I'm not really going to get into distinguishing them because that's not important. If you want to learn it, you can practice. You can talk to me later if you want to. You can buy the book. That really helps. Yeah. But you can practice with photographs off the net. You can get onto my website, take some time, practice. Do not send me photographs of dead snakes. You'd be surprised how many photographs of dead snakes I get. So this is like somebody loves dogs, and then you send him photographs of roadkill, and the person has to reply and say, yeah, that's true. The one with the exposed rib cage, if you notice the hind legs, it is definitely a Doberman, and that one with its head bashed in. What is the point of sending me photographs of dead snakes? So it's just to like, oh yeah, I know now that the snake that was massacred was a non-venomous snake, and the next time we see a snake, we'll massacre it again, and then we'll ask you what it is. It doesn't help. Don't get into dead snake photographs. If it's killed, I don't want to see it. So common crate gets confused for a wolf snake. Yes, many of you guys are really knowledgeable on snakes. I can see, very passionate about snakes. So that's the wolf snake. And that's a wolf snake playing dead. Yeah. Coach, you remember this picture? Yeah. So, and this one bit her also a few times. Yeah. And the last is a saw-scaled wiper. Hold on, I'll just get a glass. Now, this specimen that I used for this photograph had very vivid colors. Most of them are a drab brown, right? So when you put that drab brown snake on brown ground, and the snake is an adult, will fit in your hand, then you understand what the problem is and why about 50 to 60,000 people are dying of snake bite in India every year. Yeah, it's not 50, 60,000 people getting bitten. It's a lot more people getting bitten. Yeah, I can discuss also the other reasons why they are why they're dying of snake bite, but the reason people are getting bitten is because they're stepping on them, because they're not seeing them. So it's not. So when people ask me, what do you do if you see a snake? I say nothing. Doesn't matter. You can jump around, dance around it. You can walk around it. Do whatever you feel like. It's the one that you're not seeing. That's the one that you're going to step on. Because why would you, in your right mind, see a snake and then say, I want to put my foot on it? It makes no sense. So you need to reveal these hidden snakes around you. If you don't want to get bitten, that's it. It's simple. And how do you end up stepping on the snakes? If it's a lot of dry leaf litter, tall grass. So if you have to walk through an area like that, ideally you should have shoes. But I feel the more harmonious way, in that way, the more gentle, nicer way, is to use a long stick and just disturb the area as you walk through it. You don't need to step on it with a massive boot and say, oh, you can't bite me. It's much nicer to just disturb the area. Now, if there's a snake in there, what's going to happen? It's going to hiss, it might lunge at you. Like I said, it may scare the bejesus out of you, but you won't get bitten. The only way you can really get bitten actually is when you're like me and you go and actively want to pick up snakes. Another time it happens in the dark, between the house and the car in the garage. The area is paved, so you feel I've seen it in the morning or afternoon or whatever. It's clear, there's nothing there. You walk in the dark, barefoot. If there is a snake in your path, what do you think is going to happen? Now we're coming to that other sense organ of a snake. Vibrations. They pick them, yes. So everybody believes they'll pick the vibrations, they'll hear you coming towards them, and they'll move out of the way. Do they? Many of them rely on camouflage. Russell's vipers. They move around in the evenings. You'll walk right into it. And I'm saying this because some years ago, I was called to rescue a Russell's viper, which was on the tennis court at the Leela Palace. How much activity goes on there, right? It's tennis court. So if you are careful, then again, we're coming back to you could be surrounded by snakes and it's beautiful. You're fine. That's how people sit 72 hours with 100 cobras or whatever. Yeah, I don't think this happens much anymore, but used to have these Guinness Book of World Records. Somebody sat with a snake for like 2 days or something like that. Replace snakes with 72 leopards and 1 human being in there. See what happens. I'm not saying leopards are aggressive or anything. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just think about it. You could get into a pit full of snakes. As long as you're not stepping on them, you're fine. It's quite interesting, you know, for an animal that's been so maligned, and everybody says snake in the grass. And the other day, my dad, Claude, was giving a talk here, and somebody was talking about Samp CD and snakes and ladders. And so we're constantly pushing this into our subconscious. We want to talk about this amazing snake that we're fascinated with, but every time we need to run down someone and say, you're a snake in the grass, you know, you're a two-timing, backstabbing snake oil salesman, I don't know what. But this is what it is. It always has snakes in it. It has to change. We cannot be running down animals. You know, you're a pig, you're a dog, you're a this. That's a striped keelback. Sorry, I should have asked you to guess. You can see the buffed colored stripes along the side. Yeah, it's a small snake, doesn't get very big. It's about that big. And in the monsoons, especially common, you know, like many of the hotels, actually, all the 5-star hotels I used to work with, they would end up having a lot of them in those little lotus gardens that they would form. And every time people would say, oh, there's a nest of snakes there, or, you know, there's a snake with babies and stuff like that. They're actually all adults. You know, they don't get very big. And then you get a striped keelback. Yeah. Okay, what's this? Pattern. What does the pattern on the back look like? Checkered, yeah. Checkered keelback, a freshwater snake. The striped keelback very rarely bites, and interesting, the checkered keelback always bites. It was the first snake I was given to handle when I was at the Pune snake park. Why? Because it bites. So you get a hold of the snake and then you get bitten several times, and it changes something in you, you know. You don't, I don't know, it literally, you understand what a snake bite is, a non-venomous snake bite is, which is like walking into a thorny bush. It's not something pleasant, but you can survive it and there's no problems, no broken bones, no nothing. They're quite rare now in Goa. You know, one of my friends who's a snake handler, Aaron Lobo, is also pointing this out. I don't know why that's the case. Maybe the frogs have all gone missing or something like that, but you don't see so many of them. But it is still a snake you will otherwise find quite commonly in Goa. And then you come to the marloon, which is a Whitaker boa. Yeah, a head at either end. That's what you've been told. If you lived in Goa and had neighbors like I had. Yeah, so lots of very, very interesting stories. The other interesting stories about the snake in Goa, particularly, is that it has two heads only on, yes, on what? On Wednesdays and Mondays. Yeah, it's true. I'm not making this up. Go check it out. Yeah. Need I explain? So, very, very, it's a lovely snake to introduce anyone to when they want to learn, feel how a snake feels like. Because this is the only unfortunate thing. I couldn't get a snake with me because it's difficult now with all the laws. But I would urge you, when you go to a snake park or anywhere where there's snakes, and they're not being ill-treated, that you ask if you can touch one of the snakes, and you'll see it's just this, it's nothing like you would have ever thought it was. It's beautiful. So it's amazing, and if you do it right, the snake is not offended by you either. After a while, it may have picked up enough heat and say, "Now I want to bugger off," but or you bugger off. But that's it. But it's I find these moments, with wild animals when you can be, and I noticed this, completely digressing on this one, photographing dragonflies and butterflies. You think they're not paying attention to you and they're just flying about, right? But if you go really slowly towards them, which is what I did when I was on the school football court in school, because I was terrified of the ball, I was going towards the dragonflies. You can get really close to them. And at that point, it would be to nab them. But right now, it's to photograph them. But after a while, these animals will trust you. It's incredible. These little insects are looking at you, and they'll get you'll get really close to them, and everybody's thinking, no, I need a bigger, longer lens to be able to photograph it from 2 blocks away. It doesn't matter what equipment you have. If you take the time and you just sit there, you can get really close. Eventually, the kingfisher will come and sit on your shoulder. No one's done it yet, but it'll happen. Just watch it. Sit there long enough, it'll happen. Why else would they sit on cows? Huh? So, pine snake. What's the story about this? It'll make holes in your head, poke out your eyeballs, crawl into your ear, eat up your brain. I don't know. Beautiful snake. People in Goa are terrified of it. It's very delicate. If it hits your hand, it'll damage its own nose. And it has binocular vision, which means both eyes can be focused on the same image. So extremely good depth of field, helps it when it's negotiating through the trees. The snake is so well camouflaged, you won't see it. But the snake sees you, and when you get close enough, because it's frightened and it wants to frighten you, it'll do that. That's what you see. You jump out of the way and you jump to conclusions. The snake was about to stab me in the eye or whatever. That's how this happens. The rest of the snakes now we're coming to are rare snakes. These don't turn up in people's houses unless you're a villager living on the outskirts of Kotigaon. This is a brown wine snake, very rare, camouflaged on brown trees. Oops. I'm trying to turn this music down. Brown wine snake, and then a cat snake, a Foston's cat snake. So just to show you the variety of snakes that you can find around here. A bamboo pit viper.
This is venomous. Yeah,
That's venomous, yes. So again, we've got the focus is always for the longest time has been on the big four. So when you're considering how many 50 to 60,000 people dying of snake bite, it's really from those four snakes. Nobody's really, I don't think the snake handlers are using that big four concept anymore. Because you do have snakes like this one is a hump-nosed pit viper. It's a very small snake, and when it sits on the floor of the forest, you can see the head looks like a leaf. You can't see it, but sometimes villagers step on it. Now, everyone believed that it wasn't. You have to consider how expensive it is to make antivenom and to get it all over. So it's a whole supply and demand and economics, everything into it. For that matter, it would be amazing if we had antivenoms for wasps and all the different scorpions you could get stung by, but you don't, because we just think in India, we think we have bigger problems. Come on, you can walk this one off. So that's basically what happened with some of these snakes. They weren't considered like really significant in that way because not many people were getting bitten by them, and also you could survive it. I have one colleague of mine, Alex Carpenter, who got bitten by this snake, and his toe turned some like multicolored over a few days, but he still has the toe and he still has his love for snakes. So this is the thing about these snakes. They are venomous, but they are not counted because not many people are getting bitten by them. That's a Malabar pit viper, also venomous, very beautiful. And a king cobra. You get bitten by this one, there's no arguing. You better make your peace. If you get bitten, this is the longest venomous snake in the world. The biggest specimen ever measured was 18 feet 8 inches, 6 meters in length. I guess almost across this room. Yeah? It's a big snake. Because it's that big, nobody really gets bitten. It's very difficult. It's like saying, I accidentally stepped on this giraffe. It's unlikely. You would see something that big. So they do turn up in people's houses, the outskirts of, that paints quite the picture. Yeah, of people's houses in Goa. And nobody, again, really gets bitten by them. They're incredible snakes. They just eat snakes. They're like, that's it. We are only eating snakes. We're not going to mess around with rats or anything like that. And very intelligent. And the other thing you have to consider, that a snake has a personality which changes over a period of time. It evolves, So this is something people are not seeing. When you've got a baby cobra, oh my God, your heart just like, oh, it's so frightened, it's like terrified when you see a small little baby cobra and looming these huge adults around it. It's freaked out and it's putting on this big, brave display. So once it gets even to about that side, it's still very frightened of human beings. So and those are the ones, so if you pick it up, you are more likely to get bitten by something like that. But by the time you get to a big cobra, you got to see this, a cobra that's like around 10, 15 years old, He's seen it all, right? So he kind of puts up the hood and then he just looks at you and he sways a bit. Every now and then he'll entertain you by just hissing. But you can see it's not that frightening. And when you come to the king cobra, that's a massive snake. He's not really frightened of you, and yet even after being molested, in the sense of if you go and pick it up by its tail, it'll come up to you, it'll warn you, and it'll do all of those things. But when you really start seeing snakes the way I see them, and this is a fact. I'm not romanticizing this. You actually see how their whole demeanor. They don't want to fight. They don't want to bite. There's every opportunity to try and escape. Move away. That's it. And no revenge. Nobody's coming back 6 months later, to sort out that issue. You remember when you ran your motorcycle over my tail? That's the cover of my book, which should signify the end of this presentation, a flying snake. I always wanted to see this and photograph it. In truth, I didn't rescue the snake. It was rescued by a colleague of mine, Deepak Hanskar, I think his name is, I forget his last name. He is at the Kotigaon Wildlife Sanctuary, and he found it in someone's house. So it took me about 12 or 15 years of like looking, not actively looking for it, but I'm saying I was waiting to find it. And beautiful. I mean, Sim and me took this picture together. We organized how we organized, because this is the important thing for me. When I'm trying to get a photograph, I want it to look like how I feel it would look like in the wild. So if I just roll it, and every snake looks like a neatly curled whip, it's going to look very odd. So I was very pleased with being able to get this and really bring out the beauty in the snake, the right use of flash and everything. And can it fly? Obviously not. But it'll go up a tree, launch itself in the air, flatten its body, and cover a distance of about 30 feet or so. 30 meters sometimes. So one thing I want to discuss that I suddenly realized I missed was, what do you do when the snake's around? And like I said, this whole talk has been about you not creating, that's breaking down these barriers that are between humans and snakes, and judging them and saying this is a problem or I know better. It's about enjoying snakes. So what do you do when you see a snake? And I can just give you a small idea, because if you're interested, you'll start learning about them. If it's a wolf snake on your roof, do you really need to do anything about it? It lives there. It was born there. You're seeing it for the first time. It's been there all the time. What about if it's a Russell's viper in your wedding dress? Now that you might have to address, especially if you still have the dress on. So this is the thing. There is no, this snake goes there and that snake goes there. It's a situation. And if somebody calls me up and says, this is how I would like it to play out. Somebody calls me up and sends me a video of a snake. Try and get close enough. Look, you can get to within 3 feet of any snake. Okay? People are shooting these videos from miles away. And it's like, I have to be like Sherlock on the other side. I'm really struggling, and I'm showing it to Sim, and we're trying to guess. And then usually I say, well, rat snake, 98%. Just, that's all I can give you. But if you get close enough, so if you can get close enough and shoot a video or take a picture, and I'm only doing it, like I said, if it's still alive, then I'll tell you what it is, if that helps, because it's nice. You guess, take a guess, try and learn, figure out what it is. And then you see the situation. If it's outside the wall, like I said, enjoy it. If it's outside the house, don't bother, You can take away one snake and toss it away somewhere else, and another one is going to come there. There's a reason it's coming there. There may be a rat, there may be a nice hiding place, Maybe your house is beautiful. I don't know what it is, but it's there for its own reason. Nature has let it be there. So, but like I said, if it's a Russell's viper in the bed and you need to figure it out and you don't know how to get it out, that's when you call the snake rescue. Maybe. And maybe he just takes it out of your house and he puts it right there. So there's a lot of this thing where people feel, when it comes to snakes, they say, but Russell's viper around my house, I have dogs and I have children. Oh yeah? Well, you also have a car which could kill your dogs and your children on the street, but you don't ban all cars. Some amount of, occasionally a dog is going to get bitten. There's no promises anyone's going to make. But do we just wipe off like an entire, and on the other hand, we tolerate mosquitoes because we can do nothing about them. No matter how much we want to gut them, how much DDT we threw around, they're still there. Cars are still there. People still drive fast. But with snakes, it's completely unreasonable. Oh, if it's a Russell's viper, we have to get it away. Where? So that's the end of my session. Do you have any questions anyone would like to ask? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. Thank you.